For this week's portion of the program, the Ever Wonder portion of the program, I really love what Brad Walsh, our resident historian at the TCA, has decided to do. Starting a series, we're going to have a few series that are going to run throughout the weeks, throughout the years here on the TCA All Sports Report, and I especially love this one because it will spur conversation with the masses, people who will watch the TCA All Sports Report, especially when you ask a question, who was the greatest Georgia high school athlete in Metro Atlanta history? So, as a part of that series, he throws out a very interesting name this week. He says, have you ever heard the name Anthony Flanagan? And I must admit that when I read this this week, I said to myself, Brad, I haven't. I'm very intrigued, so let's find out about Mr. Flanagan. Brad goes on to say, if you ever grew up in Atlanta in the 80s, 90s, or 2000s, chances are you haven't heard of Mr. Flanagan. But if you grew up in the 70s in Atlanta, there's no doubt that he was one of the greatest high school athletes to ever play in the state of Georgia. Going all the way back to 1973 to tell the tale of a stellar high school athlete, Anthony Flanagan was known as Flan the Man. Now, that's a very 70s nickname if I've ever heard it. He was a three-sports superstar in both in football, basketball, and baseball. He led his Southwest High Wolves to 2 state titles in basketball and 1 state title in football. In his senior year, the accolades piled up, Brad says. He won, and this is just a few of them, nationally recognized All-American in all 3 sports. He was a Parade All-American quarterback, Touchdown Club of Atlanta's Back of the Week, and the TCA's Back of the Year. He was AJC First Team All-State and AJC's Back of the Year. His high school football exploits even made their way into newspapers in other states across the country and was even mentioned in Jet magazine. On the gridiron during his senior year, Flanagan combined for 51 touchdowns, 31 through the air and 20 on the ground. Now, to see a number like that these days, take it from a guy who works in covering high school football for a living, does play-by-play. I covered Deshaun Watson, who went for 50-plus, had very similar numbers just a couple of years ago. The quarterback, of course, at Clemson, one of the great quarterbacks in this state's history. Those were outstanding numbers just a couple of years ago. For Flanagan to do this in the 70s, absolutely astounding. 31 passing touchdowns and 20 on the ground. Flanagan was 6'3" and 195 as a senior, and he was one of the more highly sought-after recruits in Georgia history. He chose the University of Georgia, signing a scholarship to play both basketball and football. Once at Georgia, he decided to stick to the hard court and averaged 12.8 points per ball game and led the team in assists as a true freshman. In 76, Flan would try his hand at football again and was part of the 1976 SEC champion Bulldogs. It's a very famous team in Bulldogs history. He was just a third-string quarterback that year, but did get some playing time, which, of course, you may already see where we're going with this, was extremely significant because he became the first University of Georgia black quarterback to ever play in a game, throw a pass, and score a touchdown. His senior season, he was poised to start on the hardwood and the gridiron, but it was not to be. He was declared academically ineligible in 77, and his playing days at the university were over. Amazingly, post-academia, he wasn't done playing. Brad goes on to tell us that he played basketball in the CBA. He played semi-pro football here in Atlanta, played in the USFL for the Boston Breakers, and even made the roster of the San Francisco 49ers in the early to mid-'80s. When his athletic career was over, he became a coach at JFK Middle School in the city of Atlanta. But in January of 2001, at the age of 45, Flanagan passed away. The greatest athlete debate, Brad goes on to say, is a difficult one to have. It is all subjective, and as the years pass, the legends grow. He says we will be having this debate throughout the year, and no doubt we'll never reach a consensus. I agree with that, Brad. But there is certainty that Anthony Flan the Man Flanagan has earned his place in the debate. Coming up next, we will give you a full-on schedule and some other pertinent information to the Georgia High School Basketball Championships coming up this week in Macon.